Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us for this unique session at Betting on Sports Europe. I've always been a big fan of betting people and what Simon and Star Sports have done with it over the years. And it's been a long-held ambition to try and get it involved in one of our events. It's a change of pace, a bit more friendly, a bit more conversational. And I will let Simon take it away. Thanks very much.
Hello, thanks for coming to see us here. If anybody doesn't know, this is Ben Keefe, owner of Star Sports Bookmakers, and also the person that thought of the Betting People series back in 2017 and gave me the chance to interview people for the first time. When we did it, Ben, it was just really, as you like to say, a bit of shameless publicity, getting people to the website, but it's turned into a whole lot more than that, really.
I was very lucky that when I was 12 years old, I went to the Dogs, and I knew immediately that was where I wanted to be. That was my place. I wanted to be in the betting ring. The cut and thrust of it completely intoxicated me. And from then on, I was in the betting shop. I was going to Plumpton on a Monday. I was going to the Dogs and doing work experience for bookmakers. And I found that although as we've got older, there's nothing noble going on, but punters want my money, I want their money. There's nothing, this is not a charitable industry, right? But from the shadows does appear great kindness. And I always remember the people who enabled me. There was nothing in it for them, but they'd give me a bit of work experience, or they'd get me in the side gate at Plumpton or whatever, or they tear a strip off me and say, look, come on, you're making a mug of yourself there, because I think it's much more difficult to do that, and much kinder than just to let somebody fall. But not everybody's that lucky. I think that when you look at in the UK particularly, you think about, well, things are a lot easier if you're born in London. I wasn't born in London, but if you're in London, there's everybody here. I think that back then there were many more dog tracks where you could go, and there were much more active betting rings with pro punters and bookmakers. And when you went to the horses, each bookmaker would employ a clerk, a tic-tac man, someone on the bag. You could quickly meet people. What I believe that Betting People has done has shown several things. It's shown that, Andy McCarron's done this. He's added to the community of the betting industry, whereas people used to go to the betting ring. They wanted to meet people, they'd go to the betting ring. Now they come to Andy's shows. I think that Betting People has shown that you must specialise. You can't be a jack of all. Once you've specialised, you might then be able to become a judge of judges, but you have to then get other specialists to help you. I believe that it's also shown how people deal with pressure. I think that the game itself does shun youth. I think whenever there's a young bookmaker, whenever there's a young professional gambler, people say, oh, well, you're just having a good run. We'll see how you're doing in a decade. And the most revered figures seem to be people who are very, very old, but not that many bookmakers. So many bookmakers have their time and then they don't move on to the next generation, whether that be small independent bookmakers or Goliaths. And I think that Betting People has also taught us that you've got to keep going. Let's make an example of Andy McCarron. When I met Andy McCarron, he was a great supporter of all bookmakers. Really, he made the news. He made the moves. So you'd open his magazine and it would be, it wasn't called Betting People. What was it called? Betting Business. And he'd say, there's a page, right, this is how you get a license in Venezuela. Then it would be over how do you accept money in Taiwan. Then the next page would be about an on-course bookmaker in Scotland. And he was very kind and he'd help me do some attention seeking. And he had a nicked little Ladbrokes pen and a scrap of paper. That's all he had. And look at him now. He kept going and he's running shows all over the world and people are paying him tens of thousands of pounds to advertise their businesses. So I think it shows that it's not about genius, it's about knowing what you're doing, specialising. And I think that also, in the end, in this industry, although it's ruthless and people want to win on the next race, look, I think the media in business, and when the media talks about money, they like to try and find monsters who are almost caricature Trump type, oh, they'll do anything. But really, the people who stand the test of time and are the most successful are the people with integrity. And I think that I've always enjoyed on Betting People hearing about how people have come out of bad times, because anybody can have a good run, but you know, often it was health situations or whatever, but you know, they kept going.
Yeah, you mentioned the longevity of bookmakers. I mean, this is a fairly recent thing that they're not progressing into that age, because when I first started, there was any amount of 80-year-olds being propped up by their son and grandson, you know, in the betting ring. But when things changed around 2000, that's when people didn't keep up, because it had all been the same for sort of several decades, hadn't it? That was the so meeting the people these days that are pushing it forward. And I've been very surprised how many professional gamblers, I didn't, you know, we started with one, Neil Channing, but I've been very surprised how many people you've managed to pull out of the darkness to come up and do it for absolutely nothing and explain what they do and come into the spotlight. Why do you think that is?
Over the years, Star Sports have ended up employing in a trading capacity, or we've worked with professional gamblers sponsoring them. Many of them, and they say the same thing, that it is so lonely. You know, they sit there, and also by nature, they've done their card, they've had 2 or 3 bets that day, something's been unlucky in running or whatever, they've had all the value, and they sit there stewing until the next day. I think that the post-mortem, you know, I mean, I've been on sleeping pills for decades, because every night I read all the reports, I think, how did that person win that in that betting shop? Or how's this bloke had a lucky 15 up? Or, oh, I don't know that name. Who's that? And it's all in my head. And I'm thinking, who's trying to get between my legs? And I can't get to sleep. But for professional gamblers as well, that they're on their own. And it's that post-mortem, I think, that after the race and they're waiting for the next day and they've got to say, I'm not going to break out and start betting on the cricket or the American racing or whatever. You know, and I think that social skills are like any muscle. If you don't use them, you lose them. And I think that there's a lot of professional gamblers out there who really would like to meet others. And I think they used to do that in the betting ring. They don't really now. They do business against each other anonymously on betting exchanges. You know, and I think that, look, you have to take the good and leave the bad in things in life. And on Twitter, it's been absolutely fantastic. And, you know, we've employed so many people who've said hello on Twitter. We've done so many good interviews. And, yeah, I think that when you build a business, it really then becomes about people. Look, of course, you've got to keep laying 6-4 or 13-8 chance if you're a bookmaker, and if you're a punter, you've got to keep betting 13-8 or 6-4 chance. But if you're going to expand that, if you're going to industrialize that, you need expert help, and I think that you need, you know, intelligent people with integrity, and being a judge of them is then as important as being a judge of a race or a punter.